All right, everyone. Pay up, pay up, pay up, pay up, because I was the only one. All the Shiki fans out there, all the Golden Lion fans, and I was clearly the only one in the One Piece community saying it was the left hand of the Pirate King himself, standing, and this is going to be power scaling galore. No toxicity whatsoever after this chapter. The left hand of the Pirate King standing with, not behind, but with, towing the line with the Pirate King Gold D. Roger himself, and the right hand, Silver's Rayleigh the Dark King. We have chapter 1139 entitled Mountain Eater. Now, it was Scopper Gabon. It was Scopper, so yeah, and obviously I was not the only one. I was hoping it was Scopper. I'm far more interested in Scopper Gabon than I am in Shiki. Golden Lion's cool and everything, but realistically, Scopper, to me, has more. There's more we can do with this. And this is actually something that I'll bring up in the review, but the whole idea of Rayleigh might be out of shape. And Garp and all these guys, they're like past their prime and stuff. But Rayleigh literally was not active for 20 years. And we'll talk about what's going to go down in the next chapter, because that's going to be really exciting. So chapter 1139 entitled Mountain Eater. Sorry, Shiki fans, it's Scopper Gabon, but I'm really happy about it. Many other people also said Scopper. I was not the only one. But yeah, so just out of the gate there, Mountain Eater, of course, is the epithet of Scopper Gabon. Right, and we're following the covers page here. We have Who's Who, obviously trying to take over the remnants of the Beast Pirates and such, bringing some other people into line. Looks like he's about to execute Ulti and Page 1, and we assume it's Ulti and Page 1. A lot of people have said that. Techie in his review said that. You know, that's clearly who these people are. At first, I thought they had quickly captured Yamato, but then after seeing everyone else's comments and stuff, I realized, well, who's the second person with the horns? And how would they have gotten Yamato without a fight? Yamato went toe-to-toe with her dad. Like, Who's Who is not going to come out of that unscathed with all these fodder guys around. Yamato has Conqueror's haki. Like, no. But for some reason at first, I thought the silhouetted person with the horns was we found you listening at the door. Come into here. And Who's Who was like, yeah, we captured Yamato that easily, you know. So I don't know what brain dead moment I was having. But yeah, so they recaptured the rebellious duo is the title there. Before we move into the chapter proper, like I said, the title is Mountain Eater, the epithet of Scopper Gabon. Now, while Mountain Eater is a very cool epithet, right? It's right up there with all the other ones. Knight of the Sea, you know, First Son of the Sea or Knight of the Sea, Blackleg Sanji, you know, Pirate Hunter Zoro. It's a very cool epithet. But when we have the Pirate King, you know, the strongest man in the world. You know, the man with the power to destroy the world. You know, and these are all the guys in line here. Dark King, you know. For Scopper, which is brought up in this chapter, that he, and Power Scale is going to go nuts, that he is standing toe-to-toe with. He's the left hand. He's right up there with Roger and Rayleigh himself in their primes. Just want to say that Mountain Eater just falls a little flat. And I'm going to steal one thing from Teching 101's before we get into our review proper. In his review, he said, Mountain Eater's cool, and we know how he got that epithet. You know, we all know. There's so many jokes about how good is Scopper Gabon's haki love and stuff like that. He got with a giant. Like, that is his whole thing. He is literally that guy. So, fine, dandy and stuff, but Mountain King or something a little more like Mountain Eater sounds cool or something, but it just feels, it's sort of like how Pirate Hunter Zoro sounds good, but he now has upgraded his epithet. He is now King of Hell Zoro. I mean, he'll still probably go by Pirate Hunter, that's still be on the wanted posters and stuff, but now he's got his new King of Hell, you know, name. Sort of, and it's because it's upgraded, right? Like, Luffy will always be Straw Hat Luffy, but eventually he also has the epithet Future King of the Pirates, and eventually we know will be, his epithet will change to King of the Pirates, Straw Hat Luffy, you know? Or King of the Pirates, Monkey D. Luffy, right? So, the fact is for me, I was like, Mountain Eater is cool. And it's got that nice innuendo with Ripley and all that stuff, which we all love. We all love that shit. Come on. We're One Piece fans. But the fact of the matter is that Mountain Eater almost feels a little bit of a step down, you know? Unless Oda was seriously just going for both the badassery, just something that worked in both ways, a good innuendo in that regard. Depending on how that translates into katakana or kanji or whatever, maybe it was intended fully as a pun, because Oda loves his puns and his innuendos in the bounty numbers and stuff like that. So I'm curious if that is also the case here, that he literally was thinking about that, like the mountain climber, the one who, stood at the top, who conquered the mountain, you know what I mean, sort of idea, right? Like anything like that, anything with the innuendo. I would be curious to find out if that was the case and Oda's intention. I'm sure it'll be brought up in an SBS. If that's the case, then as sort of both a cool epithet but also a sexual gag, I like it for that reason alone. Like, yes, Mountain King could have been cooler, Mountain Conqueror, something like that, but Mountain Eater does work. Mountain Eater works for a lot of reasons. So anyway, let's get into the chapter proper. So they're looking for this key. They can't seem to find it, blah, 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 and the guards don't know where it is, and, they're like, if anybody would know the location of the key, it'd probably be one of either the Jarl or one of the other elders or something like that, but we can't literally, like, Luffy even brings up, oh, the guy with the sword in his head, the sword Grams, why don't we go ask him? He's like, he will never tell you that. And like, he would never give it to you, and he'd be pissed off that you even asked for the key. He's like, what do you want with the key and stuff? Zoro's even going like, Luffy, once again, we did not agree that we're going to free him. We're good with finding the key and stuff, but Zoro's basically like, I want to go down there with you. We're going to bring the crew. Like, we're not doing this solo. Like, Zoro's kind of like, no, we're going to do this properly. I want to go down and assess this guy myself. And if I don't think, like, he's not saying he's going to... Once again, this is Zoro's job as the first mate. This is Zoro's job. We've seen it sprinkled and in very important scenes throughout over 1,000 chapters of this story. But this is one of the times where Zoro's like, no, alright, you can go and do your fun shit, Luffy. But sometimes, whoa. And we do get actually a scene with Roger about that sort of idea. Here in Silhouette later on. But that is Zoro's job. It's always been Zoro's job. It's what makes Zoro the first mate, standing above all the others. You can argue Nami. You can argue that there is no first mate. You could argue, but at the end of the day, it really is Zoro. Because Zoro is the one to say, okay, Luffy, yes, it's all fun and games, but here's what it is to be a captain. And sometimes I have to, with the Caesar Clown thing, with the Usopp thing, the Going Merry thing and stuff, sometimes Zoro lets him run rampant 99% of the time, but when things like the Loki thing are coming up. So Zoro's like, no, we haven't agreed to free Loki. I'm going to go down and assess the situation with you, Captain. And if I determine that this is not a good move, we're going to have words sort of idea, right? And it's just like, that's Zoro's job, and Zoro's actually taking this seriously. Zoro's not as happy-go-lucky. Yeah, let's free the calamity that is Loki. What harm could it do, And Zoro's like, listen, I love fighting strong guys, but releasing someone, this is not a good idea. So, anyways, I like that Zoro's like, I'm not saying no, but I'm also not saying yes, So, I like that about Zoro. Zoro's keeping this calm, cool, and collected. So, either ways, they enter the remnants of the throne room that has been really beat up and stuff like that. An old classic, red carpet towards the grand throne and the hall and all that stuff. And it's just like, it's completely busted up. It's even beat worse here. So clearly this is where the battle started and stuff like that. And it seems that they find the magical symbol in the middle of the room. Now, this is the transmutation circle that brings, the teleportation circle that brings the Gorosei and the Gods, Knights, and people everywhere. This one, a little different than the Gorosei one we've already discussed, but it is what it is. And I'm sitting there like, okay. I get what's going on here, because Rhodes wouldn't know that this isn't supposed to be here, and it seems like the guards didn't remark on this either. Maybe they just didn't notice it because they were more focused on people in the castle or something like that. I find that hard to believe, though, because Nami even recognizes this as something. Luffy's trying to pinpoint it as something that he's seen before, but of course, Luffy was paying more attention to the crazy Gorosei monster yokai things in Egghead, so he probably he recognized it, and no different than Robin going, that X, there's something familiar about the X on Luffy's arm in the newspaper, right? that sort of idea, which that hasn't been brought up yet, I don't believe either. But it's sort of that thing. It's like, I swear I've seen this before, and Nami remarks that she's seen it before and stuff like that, right? So, or it's something that she's recognized as something like that, right? So this is where immediately we get the whole Straw Hat Luffy, and I'm sure he's just talking normally and just nobody, but where it echoes probably pretty loud. I really doubt it's this eerie ghosty voice. Ooh, you know, I'm imagining that they're just freaking out because they can't hear him. He's like, Straw Hat Luffy, I've been hoping to meet you. And they're like, whoa, what's that? Show yourselves. I'm scared. Oh no. And Rhodes is just freaking out thinking it's ghosts or some shit like that. And he's just like, and Rhodes like, I gotta get out of here. And he's taking them with him. And Scopper's just like, wait. And he doesn't wait for them to stop, like, wait up. No, there's no pause. He's saying wait as he throws an axe, boom, into to stop, completely stop Rhodes in his tracks and stuff. And Rhodes drops everyone, and Zoro catches Nami bridal style. Sanji is just eating his heart out right now. And Zoro just grab. What's up? And Luffy's just like, oh, what's going on here and stuff like that. And he goes, someone's on the chair. And he's like, yeah. And when we see it's Scupper, well, Mr. Ya. Or Yar. Now, I think it's supposed to be Mr. Yar. Because people are saying, so this is a translation thing. Scopper Gabon is sometimes spelt with Gyaban, like Gyaban. So that's where the Ya part can come from. But if we use the original name that we've been using for a long time, this is, once again, we're doing the laugh tail thing all over again. It was, it was Raftel, and now it's, even in the anime and stuff, they said Raftel. Now it's laugh tail, right? Like, because they, obviously they've gotten it correct. So this could be the case, that we've been spelling Gabon wrong the whole time, and it's Gyaban, But Gabon sounds better, so I'm going with that. Also, Mr. Yar, he's a pirate. Yar! That could be why he's Mr. Yar. Because, Yar, I be a pirate, matey. And literally from the Pirate King's crew, Roger's got the look, Scopper's got they all got that classic sort of pirate look to them, in a sense. So, I just took it, when I first read that translation, when it was Mr. Yar, I immediately said, oh, Yar because he's a pirate. Like, he just doesn't go by Scopper or Gabon anymore. Maybe in the same way that, Rayleigh sort of keeps a low profile and stuff. He's not flaunting around saying, hi, I'm the Dark King, by the way. Navy, come at me, bro. Scopper's just been settling. We know he travels because obviously this is the figure that did visit. We thought a lot of people said was Shiki. Some people said was Odin, for a long time and stuff. That visited Crocus and stuff. And he's got the hair and the samurai hat. I forget what it's called and stuff like that. It begins with a K. But yeah, so this is the guy. We know he travels and stuff like that. So I'm going to assume that it's supposed to be Mr. Yar, as in Yar, I be a pirate, and it's still Scopper Gabon. For right now, I could be wrong. Doesn't really matter. Either way, just noting all those different translations, right? So Rhodes immediately recognizes him. Oh, sir, why are you here and stuff? And immediately the respect. He doesn't call him, even though his name is Mr., he says, oh, Sir Yar, And this is where, okay, this is really cool. So remember when they kept saying they were going to hide their presence? The Shamrock and what's her name? Don't really care about her, actually. But the God's Knights, they were like, oh, we got to mask our presence, we got to hide our presence. And Luffy hadn't noticed them. Nobody there had noticed them. Dory Broggy, Zoro, Sanji and Usopp with their observation haki levels, but even Zoro and Luffy with their observation and their Conqueror's haki, they didn't notice the presence either of these people, and they were, the castle's not so far away that they wouldn't notice. So they've been masking, obviously, their haki and their presence as best they can, right? Now, Gabon here immediately says, I felt some very strange haki coming from the castle earlier, so I came out here to investigate it. Isn't that interesting? That Gabon, and we're going to talk about this when we get to the end of the chapter, because people are going to say that this is a wash, this is that. We're going to talk about how the old guard is still more powerful than the new generation, and I really don't see a whole lot of big-time power scalers or YouTubers arguing that point. And the fact of the matter is that Scopper, of everyone on this island, he noticed the God Knights showing up. He felt it, he noticed it, and he went, that ain't right. So I'm going to go check it out. You know? So, okay. And nobody's brought this up either, but I'm just going to sit here and say that Scopper has all three types of haki. Just calling it right here, right now. So many people talking about that he's going to be where the parallels to Sanji and stuff. He's going to have the best observation haki. His future sight's going to be better than Luffy's even, and that kind of stuff. And this is going to be a test and blah, blah, blah. I'm going to sit here and say the man who's supposedly the left hand, who stood toe-to-toe and on the same line, the same starting line as Roger and Rayleigh, must have Conquerors. Okay? And if we go by anime filler, he was fighting against Odin evenly, who also had Conquerors. It's basically, at this point, we haven't seen Blackbeard use it. He's probably going to have it at some point. Or maybe he won't, and that will basically be the difference. But the fact of the matter is that once you get into that realm, people without Conquerors haki just cannot fight people with it. You know what I mean? People without it are never going to be able to defeat the people who hone it. You know? That's just part of the game. So, anyways, we have Gabon here and stuff. He's noticed this haki where nobody else did. And so he finds Straw Hat Luffy and he's like, oh, and for all we know, like, he's talked to Crocus already. So, probably brought up the Straw Hats and stuff like that. Oh, okay. He's probably, when Shanks was on the island, he was talking literally to Scopper's son. He probably was chit-chatting with one of his old mentors, with one of his old family members, you know. Basically, Scopper, Rayleigh, and Roger are his foster family. They're his uncles, they're his father figures, his mom and his dad sort of idea. I'm sure that Scopper and Shanks met up when Shanks was here, right? Just last week or whatever it was. So that to me is incredibly interesting and stuff. So he's already been chit-chatting, he's been meeting, and maybe he's met up with Rayleigh for drinks I'm sure at some point and stuff like that. Does he know that Rayleigh was training him or something like that? Maybe. Does he know that he took Luffy under his wing and he's like, oh, well, comrade, my old brother in arms, Rayleigh, he took you as an apprentice. Okay, all right, he must have seen something in you. So he's been excited. So he even says, I've heard so many stories about you, Straw Hat Luffy, and I've been really looking forward to meeting you, right? So this is all good. This is all really, really cool, and I like it. I really do. Another line that comes in that Power Skills are going to love. So he says he'd love to go to Wano again. And he also heard, he's like, oh, I've heard a lot of stories about you. And that you took care of Kaido, too. Sort of like thumbs up. He doesn't say it in a way that says, oh, I could have beat Kaido. But he says it in a way like, oh, so you're up on that, you're in that tier now. Nice. Like, good for you. That old whippersnapper Kaido, because you got to remember, Scopper is older than we know for basically a fact that he's got to be in his 70s. He's around Rayleigh. He's younger than 80, we find that out. But he is probably 75 to 80, around the same age as Garp and Rayleigh and stuff like that. So Kaido was the apprentice that Scopper was fighting, sort of idea, right? He's like, oh yeah, I remember when Kaido was just a young whippersnapper, an apprentice on the Rocks crew. Yeah, he got pretty big for his britches. Oh, I heard you took him down. Good for you, man. Just the blaseness of, I heard you took down Kaido. Yeah, well, I haven't been able to visit Wano since he took over, so yeah, now I can go back there, is sort of the way I took it, because it said in the same dialogue bubble that, heard you took down Kaido too, kid. Oh, that's great, because I've really been wanting to visit Wano again, sort of idea. Almost like Scopper wanted to go to Wano. It would be such a pain to do so right now. He doesn't want to go there and fight an army. Sort of like Marco, the remnants of the Whitebeard crew and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, no, we needed to pull together a lot of people. Scopper's old. he would probably be able to go there and wreck some shit like Garp did to Hajinosu and stuff like that. He'd probably be able to put a huge dent into Kaido's army and probably kill a Calamity or two. But at the end of the day, Scopper's like, yeah, he'd probably die in the process. Be captured, die, or whatever. And he's like, I'm an old man. I'm done with this stuff. You know, that kind of idea, right? So anyways, he says here, he goes, who is this? And he's like, oh, this is Mr. Yar from Elbath. He went to the school, right? He's the husband of Ripley and stuff, right? He's like, oh, you're the dad of the giant guy. You know, the giant kid shrimp. And it's just like, oh, that's a nice way to put it. And he goes, oh, a giant little boy or giant shrimp, depending on the translation. He's just like, oh, yeah, well, I guess I am. You met him. Oh, that's nice. He's like, Colin and Ripley, yeah. Well, he took on quite a fair amount of the giant's blood. He grew up without me even being able to hold him in my arms. See, people took this the wrong way. The way he said, I was never even able to carry him as a kid. It doesn't mean I'm sure Scopper can lift him. He meant cradle him, you know what I mean? But he was born basically with mostly giant blood, as we've learned a lot about the half-breed, and we learned here in the lore. Would you believe that he's actually 20 years old? So he's actually older than, like, Usopp. But he seems like a little kid, because once again, giants age very slowly and stuff, what they consider adulthood, adolescence, etc. And Ripley is officially 80. She's older than me. So we're going to assume that Scopper's probably like 75, right? So now, he brings up, let me tell you, marrying a giant is not worth it. I get older and she stays the same age. You know, it sounds like he's almost in the same way, like Ripley brought this up as well. She's fine with it and stuff, but he's almost embarrassed. Like, you know, you're marrying an old man. Like, I feel like a creep. Like you don't want to be tied to such an old, you know, guy well past his prime sort of idea. You're young and beautiful and stuff. It's like, you know, but technically they're common law. They're married for all points and stuff like that. So he just goes, you know, love is endless. Love is a free bird. Like, love is amazing, you know, and I am the preacher of love. I am the emissary, the harbinger of love, baby. And Luffy's just like, this sounds like Sanji when he's going to be older. The parallels right there. Because, of course, even though the funny thing is that Sanji's currently number 4 on the crew, obviously a lot of people still have in their hearts that Sanji is the left hand while Zoro's the right hand of Luffy. Fair enough, and Sanji, of course, we're drawing the parallels to Scopper Gabon being also the left hand here, who, once again, something that I read on Discord, I believe, pointed out, they actually don't know. We know this is Scopper, and the rest of the crew was told this is Scopper, but he's just been called Mr. Yar, or Sir Yar, this whole time. He has not introduced himself as a member of the Pirate King's crew. He has not introduced himself that I am Scopper Gabon, the third strongest in the world at the time, you know what I mean? Like, I'm the left hand of the Pirate King himself, you know? And, like, he hasn't, Zoro, Nami, and Luffy have no idea. Rhodes might know, but he hasn't said anything. So it's just like, whoa, wait a minute. So he's just talking about this. He's like, and he talks about all these different races and stuff. Like, we already know about the Buccaneers. So clearly the Buccaneers are a type of race, a half-breed race. There's also some ones that we've never even heard about. Apparently we know what Wotans are. I still have no idea what that is, but the long leg and long arm tribe and stuff like that, yeah, we knew about those. The Buccaneers, obviously, no idea what these Dos Nadas are or these Wotans are and stuff. But and that's probably not the end of the list. He was just saying, oh yeah, you know, like, you know, this, that, the other thing. If you're just bringing up races in the world, it's like, oh yeah, we have Spanish, Italian, African, you know, tons of people. It's like, those aren't the only 3, you know, in the world and stuff, but he's just rattling off some of the you know, mixed blood races and stuff like that. There's probably more. He was just naming off a few, right? So it's like, okay, it's like, the blended people, they haven't been treated the best, you know, getting the Inuyasha vibes here. They have never been treated the best in the world, but, you know, those who are open-minded, you know, like me and stuff like that. And Zoro's like, you seem to know a whole lot. Who are you? We get the Sanji line and stuff. And so he immediately goes to Scopper and says, hey, I'm looking for the key for Loki. And it's like, whoa, Robe's like, whoa, don't tell him about that. And Luffy's like, right, forget I said anything. And then Scopper immediately like, Loki, huh? And he's been living here for 20 years. So he's very much aware, which, once again, why did Scopper Or did Scopper assist Shanks in the capture of Loki 6 years ago? Maybe. See, a lot of people are assuming the way Scopper's talking is that he can't handle Loki. He can't handle Kaido. He can't handle these guys. Maybe, maybe not. I'm sure he gives them a run for their money. Can he defeat them? We don't know. But it sounds like Scopper's just playing devil's advocate this whole time. You know, that's all he's been doing. He hasn't said yes or no to anything. Right? He's like, fascinating. Well, if there's one thing I love, this dude is the guy pulling the strings. This guy watches soap operas and telenovelas for fun. He's like, there's one thing I love, it's when other people cause problems and trouble. Not me, but other people. The drama's awesome and stuff. And Nami's just like, oh, you're horrible. And so he immediately says, you know what kind of man Loki is? If the worst should happen, what's your plan? You know, what are you going to do about it? And Luffy's immediate response is the same that he said before. I'll just beat him up and put the chains back on him. Scopper's like, oh, will you now? Well, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Years ago, a man named Red-Haired Shanks captured Loki. But prior to that, no one was ever able to stop him. And I love the way he says that. Because it's like, So, currently, is Shanks stronger than Rayleigh and Scopper? Probably. Almost definitively, Shanks has grown beyond them. Is he stronger than they were in their prime? That's another question. But you could argue that in the same way with Rayleigh about Blackbeard, Rayleigh was enough to scare Blackbeard, but Rayleigh wasn't confident he could actually outright defeat him. He's 20 years out of shape. He's at least 15, 20 years past his own prime. You know, he could give a good fight to Blackbeard, but inevitably would probably lose or die. Scopper, same idea here, probably with Loki. Back in the day, probably would have won. But he's leaving this so open-ended. And I want to talk about this power scaling a little bit because it's similar to Garp. The difference between Rayleigh and Garp is that Garp remained active. So what we saw, the devastation that man pulled, and if not for the bullshit, the Shiryu bullshit, he could take down 90% of Blackbeard's crew. The 10 Titanic captains have nothing on Garp. Garp can beat all of them. He basically proved that, right? So, fact of the matter is that an active old guard is still insanely powerful. Insanely, the only ones that could likely take him down are the Yonko themselves. Yonko level pirates. Rayleigh and Scopper were confirmed this chapter to be Yonko level pirates in their prime. If you didn't believe it before, you gotta take it at face value now. So, the difference is, Rayleigh stayed out of the fighting. We know Scopper's been traveling around and living on Elbath, literally a warrior race place, married to one of the last of the warrior style, so it's not back in the times of peace. I'm just saying, Scopper might have not exactly been sitting down drinking his entire life away like Rayleigh was, staying out of the fighting, staying out of shape. Scopper could have been traveling and still kicking ass for the last, maybe he just settled down in the last 4 or 5 years. We know he travels, so I assume he kicks ass when he travels too. And the fact of the matter is that Elbath has all these high level, animals and monsters and stuff, going hunting and stuff. He probably trains with his wife. He's training with the greatest warriors in the One Piece world. Scopper's probably, when he gets bored, he's like, all right, yeah, let's see what you can do against my double axe attack, and stuff like that. He's probably in better shape than Rayleigh is. My argument right now is that while, as I said, they were all sort of equivalent at the time, Rayleigh stopped. Garp and Scopper, I'm going to argue, did not. And so now, even in their old age, past their prime, they're in better conditioning, better endurance, and better shape. And yes, of course, the endurance to keep up with Ripley. I mean, the man has stamina like no one's business. Okay? Ivankov based his entire hormone, adrenaline drug off of the fact of just going, Scopper. what, like, they should just name the hormone injection the Scopper drug, because the amount of stamina and endurance this old man needed to keep up with all that woman is just, yeah, that's peak tier. No one beats him in a contest of stamina and endurance. So I'm going to make an argument here that old Scopper, the harbinger of love himself, is in actually better shape, and probably old Scopper is probably more powerful right now than old Rayleigh. Considering they were basically said in this chapter to be equal in their primes, I would argue Scopper stayed in better shape. Might be even a couple years younger. Who knows? So either way, he brings up this entire thing and says, yeah, well, you know, only Shanks was able to stop him. Now, for all we know, Scopper was gone away 6 years ago. He wasn't even on the island. We don't know, right? And I'm sure Scopper wouldn't have let his, you know, child and his, you know, his homeland at this point, Elbath, his homeland and his wife and everyone to be in danger from Loki. I'm sure Scopper would have went out there, double axe, conquered, hockeyed up, and been like, all right, you young giant brat, let's see what you got, right? Because, and here's my argument for this, is that later on, and we'll talk about it, it's soon, but later on he mentions that, what are Loki's powers? What makes him so dangerous? You know, and this is where I'm saying either he's in the know and he did help with the capture of Loki, or he's playing devil's advocate and he never found out. He doesn't know what devil fruit he's got. He doesn't know what Loki's powers are because he never actually fought him, because he wasn't on Elbath at the time. That's my argument. It's either he's playing devil's advocate with this whole, the Kaido thing, the Shanks thing, the Loki beating up thing. He's either playing devil's advocate for all of it, or he actually wasn't there. Possible. Maybe Loki was even smart enough to go, old Sir Yar has left the island for an extended trip like he does. Now's my perfect opportunity to attack. You don't know, right? You just don't know. So he says, like, you don't know what kind of powers Loki has or what damage he might do and stuff like that. So Luffy and Zoro are just like ignoring him immediately. Let's go look for the key. This man talks too much. And this is where Nami's like, hey, he's not wasting our time. He's giving us a warning. Why don't you two stop and listen? And this is immediately where Scopper gets the same feeling that Rayleigh did about Luffy. And he's just like, he's remembering standing there with Rayleigh and Roger being like, I'm sick of your warnings. Are you all afraid? He's like, we didn't say that, Roger. If you want to stop me, then fight me yourself. And he's like, I'm telling you to just be cautious. There are risks, Roger. You fucking idiot, you know? So Scopper obviously butted heads with his captain. So did Rayleigh. These were they have a bit of the Nami, but more so the Zoro tendencies. Like, all right, Roger, yes, go have your fun, but whoa. We'll let you have your fun. Just stop and think for 5 seconds, please. And he's like, no, I'm not stopping. Fight me instead. He's like, Roger, you know. So what a headache Roger would have been for Scopper and Rayleigh, you know, as his caretakers at this point, is the dynamic we're getting. And he's just reminiscing about this, and he's just thinking, yeah, in the same way that Rayleigh got that same feeling from Luffy when they first met. And he's like, yeah, I see what... So if he's talked to Rayleigh at all since the 2-year time skip or whatever, he has certainly, if he actually did go and visit Rayleigh at the time or whatever, then we know it's actually kind of unlikely, considering in the 2-year time skip Rayleigh was on that island and you'd think Scopper would have met up with them at the time. It's still possible that he met up at the end of the 2 years or something like that. If we go on that logic, then he's talked to him and been like, oh yeah, the young Straw Hat Luffy reminds you of Captain, eh? I can't wait to meet the guy, you know what I mean? So it's always possible and stuff. So he tells Rhodes to go to the throne and move the throne and stuff like that. We jump away from this to get the history of Scopper and stuff. Interestingly enough, this is where it looks to me almost like he's still got his straw hat at first, but it's obviously his other hat and stuff. But he's talking about Roger and Scopper and stuff. The Giants are giving this whole story, so this is how we know this is obviously Scopper Gabon, because he goes, in the old Pirate King's crew, there were two others who were especially strong, aside from Roger himself, that were equal to the Pirate King. And now, depending on the translation, some of them say that, you know, that stood right there as his two strongest crewmates, right? Seamless cut, because I had a coughing fit. Now, So yeah, depending on the translations and stuff, different translations basically say that they stood evenly with Roger, or they stood toe to toe. They were on the same tier, something to that effect. Other ones simply say that he had his strongest members of his crew, undisputed. And Usopp brings up, well, yeah, it must have been the Dark King Rayleigh, but somebody else too. And the Giants say, yeah, that's right. I think it's Omo and Kashi. They say, that's right. One time, Roger, the captain, needed to rest and heal on a mountain, so they took to this hospital in the mountains or something like that. Unfortunately, the enemies found out, and this mountain was surrounded with pirates. So many enemy pirate crews. But this fellow, he went out there on his own and took down hundreds and hundreds of enemies with just 2 axes. And it was like, by himself with just 2 axes? But there's more. In the place where they fought, there was only the bald mountainside left behind. Not a single tree was left standing. This man completely ruined a mountain. It was probably a foresty mountain and stuff. And the entire mountain was cleaved. Deforestation 101. Just nothing left but the blood of his enemies. Not a tree, not a stick, not a piece of lumber left. He is the ultimate RuneScape woodcutter with the ultimate stuff, right? So he's just up there, and yes, I stole that joke from Tekken's video. But he is absolutely, yeah, like, this is just absolutely insane. And they're just like, oh my god, so he took down, like, all these, and we can assume that the ones who were going after the king of the, the king of the pirates crew, or we don't know if it was during, was he king of the pirates at the time? We don't know. Fact of the matter is that it was probably late into the years. Who else was going to tackle the king of the pirates? Yes, you'd have your fodder crews, but I'm sure that some of these were not weakling crews. These were not just fodder crews trying to jump on an easy victory or something. They were probably, maybe Shiki went there with his Golden Lion crews and fleets. Maybe, Wang Ji or Silver Dads or somebody from the old Rocks days went out to try to get him. He had plenty of enemies and plenty of rivals, maybe not on the level of Whitebeard level, but I'm sure he had other very powerful enemies that we don't even know about. Scopper went out and took care of them all by himself. And they're like, he gained the epithet of Mountain Eater. And Jinbei even remarks, oh, I've actually heard that story. That checks out. After the first mate, Silver's Rayleigh, this man was known as the Pirate King's left hand, or the left arm, but it's the hand, the other wing of the Pirate King, So Jinbei remarks that he's heard it before and stuff like that. So then we jump back to the to Luffy and the gang. They go, there's a hidden, of course, behind, underneath the throne. They walk down to a hidden chamber with all the treasure. Nami's so excited, and then, of course, the place is completely looted, except for a key. And Scopper even remarks, like, look, even the burglars and thieves left this key behind because they knew how dangerous and deadly Loki truly was. And so he immediately says, in other words, releasing Loki is something that not even the desperate and the depraved are willing to do. The wicked and the evil are willing to do. And you still want to take this key, boy? So he's like, all right, well... And then he mentions it. It's like, yes, he's been... And so with the rest of the crew, Usopp, Jinbei, and the rest of the crew realize that Scopper Gaban is here. We know who it is. But Luffy, Nami, and Zoro have not yet been told. So this is the big thing at the end of the chapter. He's like, he's been living in Elbaf for over 20 years. The legendary figure who stood shoulder to shoulder with Roger and Rayleigh. As I said, they're all in the same tier. Scopper has to have Conqueror's Haki. I've heard nobody talk about this fact that... because everyone said it's impossible to have more than one, person with Conqueror's Haki on the cruise. And I'm like, Whitebeard's crew people. Odin was on it. Shanks, Rayleigh, and Roger were all on the same crew. The Rocks crew. Conqueror's Haki out the ass on that fucking crew. You know what I mean? So the idea that you can't... That was the whole argument why Zoro never have Conqueror's Haki for years and years. This is before the time skip and stuff, right? But for years... people said that wasn't possible. That Zoro, no, that's Luffy's thing. It sets Luffy apart as the captain and stuff, and it's just not possible, right? People finally gave that shit up only realistically in the last 5 years. I would say into Whole Cake Island territory, but there were still some naysayers saying Zoro cannot have Conqueror's Haki. That's Luffy's thing. It sets him apart, makes him the best, right? And that another Conqueror wouldn't be subservient to the other Conqueror. And everyone's argument was, of course, Rayleigh. Now, the Pirate King's crew, the strongest and greatest crew supposedly in the world, in the history of the One Piece world, has only 2 Conquerors plus Shanks. No. If Scopper Gabon is up there as the 3rd strongest on the Roger Pirates, standing toe-to-toe with Rayleigh and Roger, shoulder to shoulder, the man's got Conqueror's Haki. I'm just saying. The man's got Conqueror's Haki. So the left hand of the Pirate King, and it's Scopper Gabon. He's right here. Take this key from me, Straw Hat Luffy, if you can. He picks up the key. Now, everyone thinks that this is going to be an easy fight. This is not going to be an easy fight, because I'm going to argue that Scopper is in better shape and better conditioning than Rayleigh. And we're finally going to see, this is why it's so exciting. I said this at the beginning of the chapter. It's so exciting because Rayleigh could have dominated Luffy at any point, even after he learned Gear 4th. Luffy would be defeated by Rayleigh. Luffy was not strong enough to defeat Rayleigh until he went out into the New World. That's just a fact, okay? Could he beat Rayleigh now? That is an excellent question. That's a very, very good question. I still think it's a really difficult fight. Gear 5th will be the deciding factor. Gear 4th Luffy cannot defeat Scopper or Rayleigh. I'm just going to put that out there. Until Wano, he could not have done it. In the same way that he couldn't have beaten Kaido or Big Mom. Gear 4th was not good enough to beat the original left and right arm of the Pirate King, even out of their prime. At this point, learning Riwo and how to infuse Conqueror's Haki and Gear 5th, okay, now we've got a good argument. Now we have an argument. But the thing is, as I said, Scopper is going to go there, and he's going to use Conqueror's Haki. And he is going to, obviously this is not a do or die fight, and he's obviously likely to get the key, but Scopper is actually going to give him a run for his money. And I think Scopper's going to kind of manhandle him a little bit, because I would argue that, see, I hesitate to say this part. I'm just going to say that if not just in general, I'm going to argue that Luffy's Haki is not as good as Rayleigh's or Scopper's. Not quite yet. Or at the very least, Scopper, if we're going to go the parallel with Sanji, that Scopper's observation Haki is still better than anybody on the crew. That his observation Haki is better than Sanji's, Usopp's, Luffy's, Zoro's, anybody's. At the very least. Or, once again, we'll have a Conqueror's Haki clash, and it'll be the level of splitting the skies sort of idea. He'll be like, boom, like he's like, I'm going to hit you with this, old man, you better dodge. And Scopper's just like, takes the axe, and it'll be a Whitebeard Roger moment where it's like, they're not connecting, and Roger's like, and then Scopper's just going to be like, whew, all right. You did good, and then maybe the axe sort of cracks or something like that, and he's like, nice burst of conquerors you got there, kid. You know, sort of idea. I have a feeling that that's going to be the way this is going to go. Scopper's not going to get washed. I'm convinced at this point that Scopper is actually, current Scopper is stronger than current Rayleigh because the way they've lived the last 20 years. You know, Scopper's probably closer to what we saw Garp pull off. And could Luffy beat Garp? Straight up? I don't know, you know? And once again, the one factor of the old age is the endurance. And as much as we want to joke about it, fact of the matter is, if he, as an old man, is keeping up with every bit of woman that Ripley is, endurance, these youngins got nothing on the Harbinger of Love and husband of Ripley, Scopper Gabon. So, anyways, yeah, I think this is so exciting. We're finally going to see, and it should be a parallel to show us how well would Luffy actually do, or is it still a fight with the old guard? As I said, Shocky wasn't convinced when Rayleigh said she was not convinced. That's the way I took that panel. She was not convinced that Rayleigh couldn't beat Blackbeard. Rayleigh is more humble in that regard, and he is like, I am out of shape. You know, I was going toe-to-toe with Kizaru and I was getting exhausted. He was, like, actually disappointed in himself. He's like, and it's almost like a mere admiral is making me sweat. Like, I am so out of fucking shape, right? So, going off of this logic and seeing how Garp, who stayed active, maybe not as active, but stayed active compared to Rayleigh, now we have Scopper somewhere in the middle. Maybe not active 365 like Garp was, but definitely not sitting at the bar for 20 years like Rayleigh was. We have this middle ground, and it'll be a good showing to see how Gear 5th Luffy, or Luffy with his Conqueror's Haki infusion. And with the phone ringing, I lost my train of thought. But I think this review has gone on long enough. Fact of the matter is, I just think that this is going to be a great comparison to show us where the current Yonko strength, you know, the Big Mom's Kaido sort of idea, and where people like Straw Hat, Luffy, and Pirate or King of Hell Zoro and stuff, where they would stack up against the old guard out of their prime right now, but still holding, you know, the title. Because, like, I think King of Lightning is of this opinion, I know a few other people are, is that the old guard is still stronger than the new generation right now. You know, the Rogers, the Whitebeards, the Rayleighs, and the Garps are still on another tier compared to the current. The Kaido, the Big Mom, the Blackbeard, the Gear 5th Luffy, all that stuff, right? They're still up here. So, let's wait and see what happens, right? I think this is going to be great. It's going to be great to sort of show us how much further does Luffy and Zoro have to go to reach that level, to reach that pinnacle. We'll see. Or are they ever going to surpass it? Maybe. We don't know. We'll have to wait and see. The review's gone on a shit ton. Really, really long. So I'm just going to say like, comment, and subscribe as always. Hopefully have this out by Sunday. Might not be out until really, really late Sunday because, you know, Super Bowl party and all that stuff. Not that I care who wins that one anymore. But, yeah, so I'm hoping to have this one out. And then after that, Yona the Dawn chapter review will be out hopefully on Monday. So, yeah, getting ourselves all caught up here. Like, comment, and subscribe. Sorry if the video quality, I should have mentioned this at the beginning, sorry if the video quality isn't as good. It shouldn't be an issue, but I can't tell. I had to, my monitor broke, and I had to replace it with a very old 15-year-old LCD monitor, so obviously the color balance and everything is not nearly as good as, you know, my nice curved Samsung monitor and LED and all that stuff. I assume the quality's coming out fine because the camera's the same, the mic is the same, you know, the program's the same, everything's the same. It's just my viewing capability isn't nearly as crisp or as good. So I didn't touch any of the settings. Hopefully this looks better than what I'm seeing right now. And yeah, as I said, plug, like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see all you wonderful people back here for the next piece of One Piece, chapter 1140. Looking so forward to that one. It's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. So yeah. That's it for me, guys. Have a good one. Sayonara.